Warm greetings, friends. Happy Guru Rinpoche birthday, August 4th, 2025. Let's just relax, be quiet for a few moments, enjoy such a special day of such an amazingly incredible being, Guru Rinpoche, Guru Padmasambhava. We'll relax together and then invoke his living presence with 7-line prayer, and then kind of, enjoy the blessings. Ong hujin jijin judan sam pema geza dombo la yadin jugid nudum ni pema juni jesu dra kodu kadro mambo go jiji jesu dabdubji jinji labji jesu so guru pema sede hong hong hujin jujin judan sam pema geza dombo la yadin jugid nudum ni pema juni jesu dra Guru Gadro Mambo Ko Jiji Jizu Dabdubji Jinji Labji Jizu So Guru Pema Sede Hong Hong Gojin Yujin Nudensa Pema Giza Dombo La Yazin Juge Nudumni Pema Juni Jizu Dra Guru Gadro Mambo Ko Jiji Jizu Dabdubji Jinji Labji Jizu So Guru Pema Sede Hong Oma Hong Benza Guru Pema Sede Hong Oma Hong Benza Guru Pema Sede Hong Oma hum benza guru bema 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 sede hong Guru garu do di do no no lo go di no na no no yeno do no wan go di no digital ba jin lo la ji wan jin lo Kuziro bajin jilo mama hum benda guru pema deva da kini kai abe kenza waga abe kenza azada abe kenza so abe kenza ru. All love. I'm Drakpa. This is my home. I live right next to Padmasambhava, the retreat center of Venerable Kempo Rinpoche's. And just kind of do these kind of video reflections every now and then. So today is Guru Rinpoche's birthday, August 4th, 2025. Such a special day. Such an incredibly special being. The Lotus born. I mean, he was emanated as an 8-year-old boy in the above a lake on a lotus, surrounded by all kinds of dakinis and dakas with a 7-line prayer that we just recited. The 7-line prayer spontaneously kind of like happening all around him as like the living, resonant voice of the nature, just spontaneously happening. This is his birthday. 8-year-old boy. How incredible. How amazing. This is a teeny tiny little inkling of what Guru Padmasambhava, the great Lotus born, is like. A tiny little view into like just the beginning of being able to imagine like how inconceivably vast and profound such a being is, and how profound and vast reality is. So this is the quick reflection today. It's Guru Rinpoche's birthday. And so the really special, amazing, interesting, poignant, evocative thing is it was also Guru Rinpoche's birthday last month, when he spontaneously arose on a lotus above a lake as an 8-year-old boy. Today, and also a month ago, they're equally treated as his birthday. How can this be? This is Vajrayana. They're both true. They're both true. So this kind of view that Vajrayana kind of immediately kind of like opens our minds and hearts into as a living possibility, directly challenging some of the very strong fixated assumptions we have. There's only one way this world is. There's only one way reality is. It is a fixed set way. And it's our job as scientists, it's our job as true seekers or something, to actually discover that one world and line up with it properly, to understand it properly. Somehow the capital T truth is we find and discover what is out there in a correct way. And what is out there is a fixed, given, set, static thing of some kind. Some kind of a set or a system. It could be really nuanced. It could be a system of ever-changing, moving, fundamental, fixed, given, irreducible laws of physics. And it's dynamic, and it's like kind of constantly kind of bursting at the seams. But it's a fixed set. It has immutable given laws that only work one way. So in that sense, it's irreducibly set. It's given. And Vajrayana Buddhism and Buddhism in general directly challenges this fixed, kind of almost unquestionable assumption that we hold true, that like in so-called Western naturalism, a belief there's like a one world, one universe out there, and it's our job to kind of correctly align with it somehow, like to know it properly, and then we'll reveal the truth. It directly kind of pulls the rug out from this kind of assumption, belief system. There's 2 birthdays. It didn't happen at 2 different times. This is the same time. And it can be understood as 2 different parts of a sequence. How can this be? This is Vajrayana is filled with these things. I mean, Guru Rinpoche first was born as an 8-year-old boy in the middle of a sky, as a transcendental wisdom rainbow body. This is like the very high bar that Buddhism in general and Vajrayana specifically challenges us to do. Are we willing to be this flexible, this attuned, this nuanced, this kind of incredibly versatile? And that kind of begs the question, is reality that nuanced, flexible, versatile? And so this goes to this root assumption. It might be that reality, or that we could call the world, is multiple. It might be that like it's not just one set thing out there, and it's our job of different squirrely beings to line up with it properly. It might be that the world is co-enacted, co-created, co-shaped by the different beings, ourselves, the subjects, according to how we know, how we embody, how we understand, how we engage. We actually co-create different worlds, different realities, different ontological being, different universes, multiple worlds, understood by multiple different beings, and there are multiple different ways of knowing. This is more technically called ontological pluralism. That fundamentally being is multiple, is squirrely, is dynamic. It's not a fixed set. And this is, in a lot of traditions, they have this belief. It's called analogism. Instead of just believing one fixed world and certain ways of kind of coming to access it, like naturalism is an example of that. There's fixed cosmic laws or something, and we just have to find them and like align with them. That there's actually multiple. Being itself is a multiplicity. That is kind of the final status of its nature, of its being. It is dynamic and interactive. And so, 2 true birthdays on different dates, both being true at the same time. Like, how can this be? How can Guru Rinpoche be out there and in here and in between? Like, Vajrayana is totally designed for us to actually be able to move in between different ways of being. And like, once we get into a way of being, then that way of being within itself is true. So a good example of this is the Yana vehicle system of Nyingma Tibetan Buddhism. It has 9 levels, 9 layers of study and practice. Right? Once you determine this is the view or the worldview or the tawa that I'm in and with, all of a sudden you set the world, the ontology, the epistemology, the methodology. And within that world, that way of being, that way of knowing, that way of doing and interacting, it has an internal coherence. And the amazing thing is like if we stick with that in a Buddhist view, like one of these yana systems, foundational Buddhist yana, Mahayana yana, Tantrayana Yana. Like if we stick with one of these universes and we kind of work with it properly on its terms, internally in a coherent, consistent, comprehensive way, it will actually help us become awakened, to fully realize the truth of the profound, vast multiplicity of reality. It will be liberative. It lead to enlightenment. And so these liberative yanas, they're yanas, or vehicles, that actually, once we stay within them and work with them, they lead to enlightenment. And there's not just one way to do this. Nyingma, like, at least said there's 3 ways, 4 ways, 6 ways, 9 ways, 84,000 ways. There's so many ways. There's so many different worlds or universes that we can participate with, in, between, as long as we like hold a certain view that's liberative, that actually will like help us open into the plurality, the multiplicity, and the singularity, and the inconceivability of reality. So, a common foundational Buddhist example of this is water. How do humans experience water? As something we drink, something we bathe in, something that we use for energy. Okay, what then the Buddha taught in foundational Buddhism, there's 6 classes of beings. There's hell beings, hungry ghost beings, animals, humans, asura warring gods, and formless gods. And each of these beings have many different subclasses. How do hell beings experience water? As fire, as something that's like torturous. How do preta, hungry ghost beings, experience it? As something that's delicious that they can never have, or something that's painful that actually causes them to even have a feeling of greater poverty, greater challenge, a greater insatiable need that can never be fulfilled. How do animals experience water? As a home, as something they drink. How do humans experience water? Again, as something that satiates us, that like gives us, energy, power, cleans us. How does the asura warring god experience water? As a weapon, as a force to like use their jealous competitive edge, or something, a weapon against them. How do the formless gods experience water? As various types of ambrosia, nectar, this like, utterly satisfying, kind of like, wow, sacred substance. Which one's true? In a more, Western, natural, ontological, like kind of set, given, kind of mono-ontological way, we just assume the human version's correct. Is water. Like we drink it, we wash with it. And that all these other approaches that the Buddha was teaching are just metaphors for humans to better understand like the multiplicity of our own intelligence, of our own usually psychology or minds, our own ways of knowing. It's like to open up our epistemological or our ways of knowing so that we can more creatively kind of like be in touch with these different ways of our humanness. But Buddha says, okay, that can be used that way. And they're actually, when you look at how a hell being, which is actually there, experiences water, it actually is like fire for them. It's not like that version of reality is wrong because it's not aligned with how humans experience it. According to hell being view and vision and experience, that is how it is. And it works internally, coherently as a system. It's not liberative. It's a samsaric mode. It's a samsaric ontology. It causes cycling, pain and suffering and dissatisfaction and all that. And similarly, so pretas experience it in their way. It's like, it's not that there's one true way, like the human way, and like all these other beings either don't exist, or they're metaphors for me to better understand myself, or it's kind of, just nice myth stories to like kind of inspire me to practice or to inspire me to be nice or whatever. It's actually a multiplicity of ontologies. There are these beings. They have these different ways of knowing and interacting with the worlds, and the worlds they're in arise to them in response to their view in a very specific way, tailored or co-created with that view and that method. So Buddhism is filled with these kind of teachings. It's in the 9-yana system: view, meditation, conduct, fruition. There's always a worldview or a way that we're experiencing world, other, and self, culture, and nature. There's different ways of kind of locating that. A more kind of easy way is like container and contained, world and inhabitants. So that's like just 2 things instead of 3: world, other, inhabitants, and self. But so there's a world and there's inhabitants. So there's a game and then there's players. There's a set system, and then there's rules within that system. This is called a view, or a tawa. And it just because there's one game happening doesn't mean there aren't other ways of doing the game that's also logically consistent. Like soccer has its internal, internal pattern logic. It's a complicated game. So is chess. So is English. So is like pick a set system, pick a yana, pick a view. It's like a game or a complicated, sometimes complex system. But in terms of a simple game like chess, where you have fixed rules and boundaries and do's and don'ts and winning and losing, and like it's a set game, then within that view or that game or that language or that system, this is like, could be Guru Rinpoche calling, right? Depends on the view. Within that system, if it's a liberative one, it can I can, if I play by those rules, by those patterns, I can wake up. And what it'll help me see is there's a lot of different games. There's a lot of different views. There's a lot of different ways to engage with and co-create these worlds. There's a hell being way, hungry ghost way, human way. What's the true way? What's the only way? That's the fundamental root of all of our challenge and trouble. The fundamental root of like samsaric existence. There's one set way. It's called isness or reification, or the sense that there is some unchanging, singular, independent entity. There is something, some one way. And that one way could have a bunch of parts. That one way could be like a fixed solid entity. It could be a fixed other. It could be a fixed soul. It could be a fixed religion. It could be a fixed logic. It could be a fixed set of immutable, irreducible physical laws. Buddhism says that is not true. There is no set rule pattern system. Within a game, there's set patterns, set rules, set systems, but that's only when we temporarily hold the arbitrary set of that game, of that view, of that yana. That's why in the end we have to go beyond all views, not because it's absolute truth. That's part of it. But because anytime we hold a system as a final frame and we totalize it or absolutize it, that is fundamentally reifying an internested set of relational patterns, relative truth, that's unrealistic. We're actually kind of shelling up a set of an inexhaustible set of relationships, of interactivity, of dependent arising, of pratityasamutpada. And we can arbitrarily, temporarily set a system and hold it like a yana, like a mahayana, like a bowling, like a language system. We can temporarily set it. But when we make the mistake of thinking that's the final way, the only way, and we saran wrap our reality around that way, ontological singularity, that is the fundamental root of samsaric cyclic existence. And so we use these temporary games or sets or languages or systems to see how they work in ways that help self and other in world. This is called bodhicitta, compassion and wisdom. We use those set systems in order to see the nuance of how they include subsystems, how they interact with larger systems, how this view includes subviews, how this approach includes larger approaches, what they're good for, what they're not good for, how they're adaptive, how they're maladaptive. And we train ourselves to flex flow, to be with a system in a loving, fair, generative, co-enactive, omni-win way, and then relax and move into another system and be with that in a way that honors and cherishes and supports and celebrates it without totalizing or absolutizing it, because there's always more ways to be in relation. Why? Because the absolute nature is empty of being set, being fixed, being finally frozen in one static way. Even if that one static way is to humans an inexhaustibly incomprehensible nuanced system that like can't be calculated even by a super AI, ASI, whatever supercomputer. It's like an infinite set of rules that like is like inexhaustible, meaning we can't get to the final number, but it is a final number. Buddha said there isn't such a set. There is not a fixed, singular, independent, permanent entity of any kind. This is called emptiness. And so discovering this emptiness or this openness, this absolute flexibility of relationship, of reality, then all of a sudden we engage like more skillfully within and between systems. So this is all kind of technical. What does this mean in terms of Guru Rinpoche? Guru Rinpoche is outside. Guru Rinpoche is inside. Guru Rinpoche is in between. Guru Rinpoche is the subjective knowing. Guru Rinpoche is the duality mind and the wisdom mind. Guru Rinpoche is an 8-year-old boy emanating out there. Guru Rinpoche can appear as lion-faced Dakini, or as like Hayagriva, wrathful Buddha, or Guru Rinpoche can appear as a bird, or as space. Guru Rinpoche can appear as a multiplicity of like kind of thunderous sound, or as just silence, or as just openness, or as just a clear knowing capacity. And all these are true. So what Tibetan Buddhism is doing is helping us pull the rug from when we're in a game that we believe this game is actually a full, accurate, complete map of everything. It is the truth. It is the reality. Vajrayana keeps pulling that rug and says, nope, it's just chess. It's just one yana. It's just one view. It's just one world. It's just one way of being and knowing and doing. One set of methodology, ontology, and epistemology. There's not only the human experience of water. And even on the physicalist, naturalist level, we understand this. There's like tons of hints of how this is. It's H2O, and it's actually, all these kind of subatomic particles swirling together, and it's cosmic dust, and it's all simultaneously these internested ways of being. Like it is chemistry interacting with biology, interacting with all these layered ways of physical principles interacting at different scales, with different sets of conditions and patterns that turn on and off or get more or less relevant depending on what scale and what way we hold. If we hold the physics, if we hold the chemistry, if we hold the hormonal dynamics. So like this is related to analogism, calendar systems that locate singular events as different dates on a mapping system. This is like related to acupuncture system as an example. How many chakras do I have? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 7? Once we get into a set system, then internally it can work coherently and actually like have patterns that will work with intelligence to help us feel healthier or feel more sick. And then we can change up the set system and have 3 chakras and work with that, or 5 chakras and work with that. It depends on how we hold the game, how we hold the astrology, how we hold the system. And some systems aren't true. Like the world pointed towards by like Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien maps and all these like Game of Thrones, like there's clubs and worlds and names and characters and performances and all these things, and it can seem like this amazing set, this amazing game, this amazing play, this amazing dream. And it can seem like internally it has all this coherence and it has an actual history and it has these very set things that happened and didn't happen. And it's all made up. It's all make-believe. It's all, we would say that. The Game of Thrones is a complete fabricated fiction. It's just like totally imagined. And what Buddhism says is once we lock into a set sense of me and a set sense of my world, that's equally fictitious. In mind-only school, they call it kuntag. A big example of something that's completely imaginary, totally made up, and not there at all. There's no referent. We can use the word ego, me. But if we actually look for it somewhere, anywhere in the universe and the world, we won't find it. It's a completely imaginary, made up, fictitious non-entity. It's just not there. That ego, that sense of me. It's the felt experience isn't referring to an actual thing anywhere. It's just a mistaken way of holding a false game, an invalid, completely hallucinatory, not true at all game. And it can be internally consistent. I can have my histories and my stories and my feelings and my ideas and all that. And it cycles in patterns of endless suffering because it's not referring to anything that's actually happening. It's totally made up. It's a complete mismatch. So we have to be discerning. There are some games, there's some ways of knowing and being, there are some views that are just totally cycles of suffering. They're not, it's just made up. Or it's like a significantly imaginary. So that's why Mind Only School has the Kuntag is totally imaginary. And then Zhewang, which is the dependent arising of the power of others. There are these interactive patterns that actually are happening at different scales, at different modes and times and sizes and shapes and aspects. It is in integrative systems that we're a part of. And like depending, like they're interacting, and they actually, it is pratitya samutpada, dependent arising. That is actually how relative truth is. And if we look at the nature of it, then Mind Only School, in terms of that view, that system, within like, you know, foundational Buddhism, according to that set arbitrary game system, the third is Lundrup, non-dual mind. There is this mind. It's an idealism. There is this awareness that is the way it is, and it's true. That's what is experiencing itself. The awareness is experiencing its habituated way of experiencing others, objects, experiencing interactions, and experience a sense of subjective self and embodiment through like an embodied, you know, vessel, like human eyes, human ears, human tongue, human all this. And then middle way view, the middle way school, as the next opening of Buddhist philosophy, says no, there is no such thing as non-dual mind as a set thing. That's empty too. So it opens the game. It shows it was arbitrarily holding itself in a non-realistic, an unrealistic, distorted way. And so it eases into more plurality, more specificity, more pratitya samutpada. Says no, go beyond all conceptual designation. Go beyond holding the belief in any kind of inherent existence, any kind of fixed fundamental entity. We have to like ease into, loosen up into more relationality, more interdependence. And we'll start to see that absolutely there isn't one fixed set way of being. Ontology isn't fixed and set. Guru Rinpoche can instantly appear as an 8-year-old boy. And there's over 1,000 histories of Guru Rinpoche's life. And they're all true. Why? Because it depends on the view. It depends on the way you're interfacing and holding with that universe, that world system. And it's not just that they're all fictitious. They're actually all coherent, liberative ways of holding experience that will awaken you. Versus the infinite ways that are fictitious. That are like patterned ways of samsaric knowing that like we can play the games and go through the loss and the tragedy and the comedy and all that. And they'll just keep us cycling into these beliefs that believe this is the one way, my way. So I'm just kind of opening this, like this exploration, which, you know, basically points towards the childishness of rationality, of scientific naturalism. As powerful and amazing and wonderful as it is to create this Zoom and create this thing and create these glasses and create factories that produce this clothing and create language systems that I'm using, like as powerful as the Western monological like science of all kinds of varieties of sciences, because even they can't play fair with each other, because it's like haven't gotten that mature yet to have chemistry and biology and physics and psychology and psychiatry and sociology and all these hard and soft sciences actually to integrate into larger hard and soft sciences. Even if they're physicalists and they believe there's a set given physical reality, they haven't matured yet into saying, hey, we can like have these like larger game interactive plays. Like we haven't, most cultures haven't gotten there yet, but the Buddhist cultures got there a long time ago, thousands of years ago. And in Tibet is a good example of this. Giant landmass the size of Western Europe had all these different liberative ways of actually awakening beings. And they did it without like glass and soap and roads. Like somehow like so many beings used these set views, these games. Set meaning like a temporary holding pattern that was liberative. This yana or vehicle. Like foundational Buddhist, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Dzogchen, all these different ways. And they all trace back to the Buddha, a being who is teaching all these different ways to wake up, to be fully what you are in like the inexhaustible multiplicity of being that you are, that reality is. And within Tibet, for centuries, beings actually woke up. And what happened? They became super kind. And they became committed to showing up and play any being's game in a way that was helpful for that being, for the beings that are playing that game, that view, that worldview. And they could work with any dream. Give them a dream. Their job is to try to make it as awesome a dream as possible, and then to let go and let the dream beings and their natural prajna, their natural intelligence, turn on and sharpen and have their Buddha nature pour out more intelligence, more kindness, more bodhicitta. And then those such beings, these liberated bodhisattvas, courageous for the enlightenment of all beings, would go into another dream mode with other dream beings and play their dream game, even if it was totally contradictory to the game they were just in, the dream they were just in. They don't care. They're not believing that the dream is real anymore. It's not one fixed way. It's just different dreams, different games. They care about the suffering of beings. They'll use whatever dream is available, whatever play, whatever story, fictitious or true, valid or invalid. These bodhisattvas don't have preferences and say, no, you have to play my game. You have to only play this way. They're just showing up for dream beings according to their dreams and not forgetting it's just a dream. And that, so then they keep playing the dream in a co-creative, co-awesome way. That's called kindness. And without forgetting that the nature of that dream is just to be a dream. It's open. It's multidimensional. There's a Dharma Dhatu wisdom, mirror-like wisdom. There's all these wisdoms are happening. They don't forget that the reflections happen. They seem real. They're functional. They're consensual. They're like consensus. Like they actually, beings, once you agree to a game, it works. Like it can work and produce certain very specific predictable ends. But it's just a temporary holding pattern. And so the bodhisattvas that were produced in Tibet and hopefully many other places around the world, there's so many different liberative games, and even just within Buddhism, so many countries, so many different yanas and systems. There's so many ways of waking up, of becoming fully ourselves meaning actually the fullness, the like overflow nature of reality that is pointed out in various ways by Buddhism. This is a beautiful opportunity. We have all these set liberative methods. We have meta-integrative things like Buddhism, like Tibetan Buddhism, that has all these yana systems that are integrative. They're complete systems. They're like totally dynamic. And we can move into them and away outside of them and in between them, and like they unfold in like very specific patterned ways. And there's many ways to wake up. There's many liberative systems. And Tibetan Buddhism has at least 9 internested systems of waking up. It's meta-integrative. They have 4 complete philosophical systems. And all these views correspond to methods that stabilize that view and integrate it with our daily behavior, with others in a world, and like achieve a result that's liberative, that will end or undo the habitual misknowing that there's some fixed me in a fixed world with fixed ways of being, and that's how it is. That like it'll undo that unrealistic pattern, so we'll actually experience ease, naturalness, how we are when we don't make that mistake, enlightened Buddha nature. So in honor of Guru Rinpoche and just his just extraordinary, just like how amazing Guru Rinpoche is. Guru Rinpoche is everything. Guru Rinpoche is the world. Guru Rinpoche is you. Guru Rinpoche is this moment of awareness right now. And it's his birthday as well, today and last month. It's so amazing what we're a part of. And we have this opportunity, we have this intelligence to actually fully realize that on the absolute level, we are Guru Rinpoche. And we've always been, and so are you. And so is everyone. Everyone's a Buddha. Everyone is this enlightened nature. And we can do that without mixing things up and going super woo and just like it's all just exactly as I imagine it and whatever. Just make up a bunch of whatever, Game of Thrones BS and believe that's how reality is. No. There's like, Guru Rinpoche is very specific ways, and there's no final set way that can be. There's so many logics that work internally. But once we say there's only one logic, one pattern, one rule, one system, even if that one is a dynamic thing, like it's 3 principles, or 18 principles, or whatever. Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths help us show, like, they help us see how getting in the mind frame, a samsaric mode of seeing things in a certain way, always leads to suffering. And we can cease or stop doing that by dissolving the rigidity of holding it as being only one way. And then we cease that. That's the third noble truth. And we open to the absolute flexibility of the nature, which manifests in an infinite multiplicity of ways that are exactly specific. And thus we have things like Tibetan Buddhism that have produced countless beings, bodhisattvas, noble ones, that will never make the mistake of reifying reality in an unrealistic way again. And thus, they have the open-hearted kindness that spontaneously turns on to carefully, kindly, lovingly be with every single being they ever interact with in more and more inclusive ways, more and more beings at the same time, with more and more different ways of shape-shifting into helpful, skillful ways of showing up for others, of being the exact medicinal balm that exactly suits the needs, the game, the system, the beliefs of the being they're with, so that it can care for them, nourish them, uplift them, support them, and then give them space and let go and let their own natural intelligence and goodness, their own heart and mind turn on with greater natural ability to just naturally, autopoetically be what it is. Enlightened, awakened, loving, compassionate, wise. So, always thank you, Guru Padmasambhava. May all your wishes come true. May everything you ever want to have happen instantly happen. May I always exactly follow in your footsteps. May all my mistaken ways of not doing that be instantly kind of dissolved. May I fully receive your blessings. May these great lineage holders who follow exactly in the footsteps of Guru Padmasambhava, like Venerable Khenchen Palden Sher Rinpoche, Venerable Khenpo Seon Donyo Rinpoche, so many masters, may all of their wishes instantly come true. May they have long, healthy, perfect lives, like fully aligned with Dharma, fully supported by all the beings they come in contact with, have perfect pratitya samadpada, so that every one of their noble wishes, every one of their activities instantly comes true, so that we can realize everything's Guru Rinpoche, everything's Tara, everything's Chenrezig, everything is Rigpa, everything is Dharma Dhatu, and can relax and enjoy the splendor that reality is when we naturally let ourselves be real. Love ya. So we'll just kind of like pause here for a moment, enjoy the open isness, beingness of the multiplicity of Guru Rinpoche in its quiet form, and then dedicate the merit, reactivate our bodhicitta for all beings. By this merit may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara may I free all beings. Precious bodhicitta, and those without it may it be generated. Those who have it may it never diminish, but always continue increasing. Deity, mantra, and dharmakaya are the nature of appearance, sound, and awareness, the pervasive kaya and wisdom display of the Buddhas. May practitioners of the profound and secret great perfection remain inseparable from the innermost one-taste awareness of wisdom mind. Love you, friends. Enjoy the deep diversity that you are.